What's up, everyone? This is Mac with Craftmaster Stainless, standing in front of one of our newest 5-barrel Pro Line 2-vessel brew houses. This is a 5-barrel electric system featuring a combination mash lauter tun, combination kettle whirlpool, and 10-barrel electric HLT and 10-barrel cold liquor tank. This video, we're going to be highlighting all the key features of our Pro Line systems and the optional features that you can select when working with us to build out your brewery. So what we're going to start with today is our combination mash lauter tun. On this system, you will have CIP features to clean the tank after your brew day. You have your recirculation and Vorlauf arm. On this system, you do have a sight glass to check the color and clarity of the wort, and then you can also pull a sample off the sample port for measuring pH as well as gravities. On most of our systems, we do have an external wort grant so that you're not applying direct pump pressure to the grain bed and collapsing that grain bed. We focus highly on efficiency here so that you're getting everything out of your grain for that brew day, saving yourself a little bit of money along the way. Walking around the system, we have the Nord drive motor for the rake and plow, which we'll see here in just a little bit. LED lights inside the tank so you can see everything. We use all IFM sensors on our systems. So the mash tun will have a temperature probe for you to check the mash temperature. We do recommend purchasing another probe that you can then poke through the whole grain bed, make sure everything's homogeneous and you're hitting that temperature you need as you are converting all the sugars from the grain. Walking around the back of the platform here, we'll talk more about the platform in a second. We'll go to the back of the combination kettle whirlpool. The kettle whirlpool also will have your temperature sensor so that you can see as you are getting close enough to boil temperature. Just monitor, make sure you don't have foam rising out of the kettle. We also have a low level sensor. So for most of our systems, especially electric and direct fire, we put a low level sensor on the kettle so that one, you protect the heating elements. The liquid level you can see will be above the heating elements before the heating elements are allowed to turn on. That prevents you from burning out your heating elements. We do build all of our heating elements out of 316 stainless. 304 stainless works well for heating elements. We can build those in 304. We like to do 316 just because it kind of gives your brewer a little extra chance to make sure you don't ruin your heating elements. You're going to build up some proteins. You're going to get some hot material on there. Once you start getting hot marks and like scorching on those heating elements, it can make hot spots, which will potentially lead to burning out those heating elements. We don't want to do that. 316 gives you a little extra time to avoid that. Top of the kettle, we do have the 6-inch steam exit port. This we can build an indoor steam condenser stack for with sprayers so that you condense that steam back down to a liquid, run it to the drain. This has a condensation trap, so that will run down through the sidewall of the kettle out to the bottom and drain off to your drain. With the 6-inch stack, you can also exit out of the roof of the building. Walking around, we also have the sight tube. You can see how much liquid is inside the kettle as you're filling. And then we also have the tangential whirlpool arm. So when you go to whirlpool the tank, it spins it. You'll get enough of a mixture for 15-20 minutes as the hops are going in there. Next up, we're going to talk about the hot liquor tank and cold liquor tank, both of them featuring sight tubes. Electric hot liquor tank with heating elements. So on this guy, we'll walk back around over to the sensors. Same thing as your kettle. Since we have heating elements in here, we don't want those to get damaged. You will have the temperature sensor as well as the low level sensor. Each of our hot and cold liquor tanks, we typically build out with their own separate pumps so you can send hot and cold liquor throughout your brewery. They do have the overflow tube, so as the tanks fill up all the way just about to the top, they will overflow down to the ground. So keep an eye on that. I know we all like to put little lakes inside of our breweries. Cold liquor tank, we have the side glycol inlets and outlets, both on the bottom dish as well as on the side of the tank. Thermo well for the temperature sensor. All of these sensors will connect back to the HMI and PLC on the Brewhouse for readout and control of the tanks. Let's hop up on the brew deck here right after we talk about the piping. So this system is featuring a centralized manifold up on the brew deck so that you don't have to run down, flip some valves. You have a few you still have to flip on the bottom, but most of it's going to be controlled right there underneath your touchscreen. Because all your pumps, all your heating elements are going to be controlled from the podium up top. You have the electrical cabinet down below, which houses all of the VFDs and circuitry for the system. Most of the stuff you have to get to is over here on the left. We did design this system so that you have to remove the staircase to open up the other half of the panel, but most of the things that you actually have to get to are going to be on the left of the panel. That way we didn't position an electrical box, you know, behind the brew deck, it's up against the wall. Now someone has to crawl underneath and open up a box to fix something if they have to. Up on the system, we'll go back to the mash lauter tun. So here you have your hot and cold liquor blending tree. Hot and cold liquor coming from the tanks. You can blend those. We put a little filter in line that helps blend the water better before it reaches the temperature sensor as well as the flow meter. That way you get an accurate flow and an accurate temperature. A lot of other systems out there, they don't have any kind of blending before it hits these, so you'll be off on your water readings and your temperature will be a couple degrees off as well. You don't want that when you want to be on an exact mash temperature for the style of beer that you're brewing. The water tree, we can send it off to the hydrator. As the grain's dropping down from your auger, we can send the water out to the rest of the brew house or down to the plate heat exchanger. And then we have valves that will send it off to each separate tank to, you know, help with cleaning, liquoring back in your kettle, whatnot. Down on the mash tun, we do have the rake and plow. This helps stir your grain for you, of course. You can still use a paddle if you do see any dough balls or anything of the likes. Over on the kettle, if you look down in there, you can see the heating elements. It features a center drain as well as your wort outlet over here on the left. And then we do have a trube dam that helps block out, you know, the hops and protein from being sucked out during the knockout period. Let's talk about the beautiful centralized manifold right here. As you can see, all of my mash valves are going to be on the left. All of my kettle valves are going to be on the right. And then I also have a hot water outlet here, so I can spray anything down on the brew deck. I can clean the tanks and, you know, spray out anything in the system if needed. We do have the glass manways on this system. We're going to go ahead and etch those with Newville Brewing Company's logo. And that will be completed before this gets shipped out to Newville Brewing Co. in California. We're going to go ahead and talk about the HMI touchscreen here. So this is where all the controls are located. I can turn on and off my LED lights. I can manually turn on each pump if I have to, but we also go through some automated features. So I'm going to go ahead and lock out of this real fast, get back in there. I'm going to show you the different level of controls that we can talk about on the system. So what we built into this system is not only the brewhouse controls, but also our fermentation control. So as we go into our fermenters, Newville Brewing Co. has 4 fermenters. As they choose to either add more, we can reflash and reprogram the system to show more tanks. You'll have your temperature readout. We can set fermentation profiles. So let's say we're fermenting at 68 degrees for 4 days. You know, you do a VDK test, you know, testing for diacetyl. We'll then ramp up that temperature to 70 for a few days to make sure that is not in the beer. We can control the 4 tanks from here. Another thing that we can do is then we can monitor the temperature trends. So what's going on with the system? Why didn't it ferment all the way? Did it get cold one day? Did we not catch that temperature rise enough for diacetyl rest? You can check that out here, and we can take those files off, put them in the USB drive that we have included on the back of this. Go load those into your computer, keep track of them. Now let's go into the brewhouse controls. On the home screen, it's gonna go through all of your mash tun and then your kettle controls. You can turn on each heating element separately. So if we're ramping up temperature, let's turn on all three. If we have a pretty good boil rolling, then we'll turn off one of them. We can operate off of two of the heating elements. As you're brewing and going through your process, we can turn on our auger from here. Then we can set our false bottom pre-water. So that's going to be the water that covers the false bottom. And that's when you start adding in the grain. Then how much volume of water we're adding to the grain. So our strike water, we can set the rake speed, and then we can set our HLT and CLT pump speed. Those processes, of course, are going to go through as we commission the system. We'll give you a baseline of how much water needs to flow, the water we're targeting that needs to go in the system. It will automatically turn off those pumps as we reach our target strike water. We can also control the amount of sparge water that goes in as we are transferring out to the kettle. We can set a Vorloff timer. So let's say we want to recirculate 30 minutes, 40 minutes, however you want on that. We can target the pump speed for the transfer from the mash tun to the kettle. Typically that's going to be the same as your Vorloff pump speed. We can set your boil timers, boil temperature, and then once it reaches your boil temperature, so depending if you're at altitude or not, that'll be different. Once it reaches that temperature, you set that timer, boil 60 minutes, boil 90 minutes, depending on what style of beer we are working with that day. Same thing, whirlpool timer and pump speed. So typically the pump speed's almost going to be 80% to max to really get that whirlpool cranking. And then we can also set out our knockout pump speed. So we're going to turn on the kettle whirlpool pump, sending out to the fermenter. We'll turn on the CLT pump, and the system will recapture the cold water, turned hot water back into the HLT for CIP or the next brew day. Let's save some of that energy that we're using already so that we don't have to heat it up again. We do have hop timers in there as well. So if you're doing multiple hop additions throughout the boil, so it'll beep at you, be like, hey, here's your 50 minute, 60 minute, first wort hop, 10 minute, and then we can add some whirlpool hops in later. We go off to the next screen. We have the HLT and CLT controls. So that's where you set your temperatures. You can manually turn on heating elements from here as well. One thing the system does feature is we have remote login through a Wi-Fi module. So that means you can log into the system from a computer or your phone. You can control it from your computer or phone. It just asks you to make sure, hey, is there anything in the way of pumps or anything that moves? Safety is the #1 feature for everyone, and so we really need to make sure nothing's in the way before operating the system. But that means you can also be at home, log in, check your hot and cold liquor tank temperatures, and make sure they are set for your brew day the next day. Same thing, you can log in and check your fermenters. So if you guys are curious about controlling your fermenters as well as your system from home to make sure everything's set for the next day, please reach out. Let's talk about it. Let's build a custom system for you guys. Other than that, the system does feature 2 emergency stop switch, one down by the grain out manway on the mash tun, one up here on the brew deck. So if you have to, stop everything, the emergency stop switch will turn off any and all heating elements as well as any pumps or drive motors. Once again, safety. Other than that, that pretty much covers everything on this 5-barrel 2-vessel electric system going to Newville Brewing Company. If you are curious about building a brewery out with us from any size, 1 barrel, 60 barrel, please reach out to myself or one of the team members here. You can reach us at info@craftmasterstainless.com. You can reach me at mac@craftmasterstainless.com or give us a call at 916-750-4677. I'm extension 1. I love to talk shop. I love to talk brewing. Let's build you a system this year. Thanks for tuning in.